The Siege of Leningrad, lasting from September 8, 1941, to January 27, 1944, was one of the most prolonged and devastating sieges in the history of warfare. The city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was besieged by German and Finnish forces during World War II, resulting in unparalleled human suffering and resilience. This 872-day blockade not only shaped the course of the Eastern Front but also left a profound impact on the collective memory of Russia and the world. Background and strategic importance. Leningrad, the Soviet Union's second-largest city and a major industrial center, held significant strategic importance. Its capture was vital for the German Wehrmacht as it would deal a severe blow to Soviet morale and industrial capacity. Moreover, the city's location offered a gateway to the Baltic Sea, providing a crucial naval advantage. Adolf Hitler's Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union launched on June 22, 1941, aimed to capture Leningrad alongside Moscow and Kiev in a swift and decisive campaign. Initial advances and encirclement. As German forces advanced, Leningrad's defenses were bolstered by the Soviet Red Army and the city's civilians, who built fortifications and anti-tank barriers. By late August 1941, German forces had severed the city's land connections to the rest of the Soviet Union. On September 8, 1941, the encirclement was completed, marking the beginning of the siege. Finnish forces in the north also contributed to the blockade, though they did not advance into the city itself. Life under siege. The siege imposed unimaginable hardships on the inhabitants of Leningrad. The city's population, swollen by refugees, faced severe shortages of food, fuel, and medical supplies. The Soviet government had not anticipated a prolonged siege, leading to inadequate stockpiling of resources. Rationing was implemented, but it soon became apparent that the food supply was insufficient. The winter of 1941 to 1942 was particularly brutal, with temperatures plunging and fuel supplies dwindling. The daily bread ration for civilians dropped to 125 grams, approximately 4.4 ounces, by November 1941. People resorted to desperate measures to survive, including consuming wallpaper paste, leather goods, and even resorting to cannibalism. The lack of fuel meant that many homes were unheated, and water pipes froze, forcing residents to gather snow for drinking water. Despite these conditions, the people of Leningrad displayed remarkable resilience, maintaining factories, hospitals, and cultural institutions as best they could. The Road of Life. The Road of Life, a supply route across the frozen Lake Ladoga, became a lifeline for the besieged city. In the harsh winters, convoys of trucks and sledges transported food, fuel, and other essential supplies into Leningrad and evacuated civilians. This perilous route was constantly targeted by German artillery and aircraft, making the journey hazardous. Despite the dangers, the Road of Life provided a crucial link between Leningrad and the rest of the Soviet Union, albeit an insufficient one to fully alleviate the city's suffering. Military efforts and counteroffensives. Throughout the siege, the Soviet military launched several offensives to break the encirclement and relieve Leningrad. The most significant of these was the Sinyavino offensive in 1942, which aimed to sever the German supply lines and create a corridor to the city. Despite initial successes, the offensive ultimately failed, resulting in heavy Soviet casualties. The turning point came with the Soviet offensives in 1943 and early 1944. The successful Operation Iskra in January 1943 opened a narrow land corridor to the city along the southern shore of Lake Ladoga. This allowed for the construction of a railway, significantly improving the flow of supplies into Leningrad. The final breakthrough occurred with the Leningrad-Novgorod offensive in January 1944, which pushed German forces back and lifted the siege entirely on January 27, 1944. Human cost and aftermath. The human cost of the siege was staggering. Estimates of civilian deaths range from 600,000 to 1.5 million, primarily due to starvation, exposure, and disease. The city's population was decimated, and the psychological scars endured by the survivors were profound. The physical destruction was also immense, with many buildings and infrastructure reduced to rubble. In the immediate aftermath, Leningrad began a slow and arduous process of recovery. The Soviet government recognized the city's resilience with the designation Hero City, and extensive efforts were made to rebuild and commemorate the siege's victims. The legacy of the siege became a symbol of Soviet endurance and a rallying point during the later stages of World War II. Cultural impact and memory. The Siege of Leningrad has left an indelible mark on Russian culture and collective memory. Literature, art, and music from the period reflect the harrowing experiences of the city's inhabitants. Dmitry Shostakovich, a Leningrad native, composed his Seventh Symphony, the Leningrad Symphony, during the siege, which became an emblem of Soviet resistance. The symphony's premiere in the besieged city in August 1942, performed by an orchestra of emaciated musicians, remains one of the most poignant cultural events of the war. Memorials and museums in St. Petersburg today honor the victims and survivors of the siege. The monument to the heroic defenders of Leningrad, the Piskarevskoye Memorial Cemetery, and the Leningrad Siege Museum serve as reminders of the city's suffering and resilience. Historical interpretations and controversies. Historians continue to debate various aspects of the siege, including the strategic decisions made by both the German and Soviet leadership, the adequacy of Soviet preparations, and the allocation of resources. Some critiques focus on Stalin's failure to evacuate civilians and his handling of the city's defense. Others examine the ethical implications of the German strategy to starve the civilian population into submission. The role of Finland in the siege is also a subject of historical scrutiny. While Finnish forces contributed to the encirclement, they did not advance into Leningrad, leading to debates about their motivations and the extent of their complicity in the blockade's humanitarian consequences. Conclusion. The Siege of Leningrad stands as a testament to human endurance and the horrors of war. The city's inhabitants endured unimaginable hardships, yet their resilience became a symbol of Soviet strength and defiance. The siege not only influenced the course of World War II but also left a lasting legacy in Russian history and culture. As we reflect on this dark chapter, it serves as a poignant reminder of the human cost of conflict and the enduring spirit of those who lived through it.